Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter 379. It is the last day of the week, aka the Big Bang Attack workout. I am feeling very good right now, very excited for this workout. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today. Honesty is best reserved for the self, not for the world. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is twofold. Obviously, this is a two-parter, but while laying in bed when most best ideas come into play, because of course, right before you go to sleep, all of a sudden the brain's going like pew, pew, pew with a bunch of ideas. But the idea that came up into my brain was the idea that though we want to be honest in the outside world with others about things, we cannot do that. As much as we would like to, and we probably should, we cannot do that because there's too many things about honesty that is basically cutting deep in basic terms. But we'll get into that. That's part of it, and that's the second half of it. The first half, which is going to be about the fact that honesty is reserved for the self, and that is something where we as our own person should be more honest about ourselves than anybody else in the possible world because we know ourselves in and out. And we should know ourselves using honesty and using that as our tool to go through our soul, basically, and making sure that whatever the inside looks like is true to you. But that same lens cannot be flipped on the outside. And that's why I wanted to talk about today's video. It's basically about honesty, but the way we can and can't use it in both ways of like in greater society, but it must be used in the greater self. And I think that a lot of people get it clouded or mixed up because of the fact that maybe they cannot be honest with themselves, or they cannot be honest with the world, or they are too honest with the world, or maybe so honest with themselves that they are not allowing themselves to be gracious with themselves. There are a lot of ways and factors that people misuse honesty in a way to change it into wickedness or something along those lines, especially upon the self, where if you are honest about yourself or realistic about certain things, you get too much into a negative zone where all of a sudden you're not even in reality anymore. You've left us. So that's the thing about honesty, is balancing it out. But I do truly believe that it's something that it's a lens where we can't flip it. Unfortunately, as much as we would like to, and we probably should, it's just not a thing. But we'll get onto that. A few other reasons why we can't flip it, the looking at it through both sides of the spectrum, and a few other things when we get to Mother Base. All right, so start this day off with single arm lat pull down, which was pretty good. But anyway, back to the main subject matter for today. Honesty is best reserved for the self and not for the outside world. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because I've been at work for over a year now, and whilst being there, I realized a lot of time, obviously this is something that I knew, but practicing it was a little bit different, and that is that honesty is something that people are not prepared for. So in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at both sides. Now, first, before we take honesty on the road, we must look at honesty within ourselves. And I think that a lot of people are truly dishonest with themselves, and that is an issue in of itself, because the dishonesty with oneself makes it so we are blind to certain spots in our either personality, our life, our habits, or whatever it is. So because of that, that ends up making it so we end up turning the blind eye into ourselves and start basically lying to ourselves. Thus, the lens that we see ourselves in is dirty and or not as clear as it should be. Thus, that is why I say that most people should be very honest with themselves. A brutality of honesty towards themselves is probably better than a fake or non-real lie of themselves that they see, because if they look internally and see themselves for the honest self that they are within the world that surrounds them, they can project themselves better outside in the world and be confident in what they are representing on the outside world, thus making it so the representation that they are putting out there is a clear actual representation of themselves, not a disguised figurine of who they think
think they are. And sometimes people can see through that because they can understand that the lens that they understand that you're looking at yourself through a lens of lies. So that's why I'm very staunch on the idea of being honest with oneself, because I think that it is very important. Now, there is a limit to it in a certain sense where that you want to be honest with yourself, but you don't need to be, overly brutalistic or, ruthless with yourself. You should be to a certain extent, but you have to understand that these are things that you can change. So it isn't a thing to make yourself look down upon yourself with the honesty. It's to be honest with yourself, but then understand that there are things that you could possibly do to fix whatever the bad parts are, or the whatever other things that may not be as good as you would like it to be, because everything you could fix in theory, but the only way to fix it is by being honest with yourself and understanding what the body or mind needs. So that's part of it. The other part of this entire scenario is the fact that the honesty from the inward does not work outward. As much as people would like to be honest with each other and be as open as they can be, that does not work. In all social settings, you have to refrain from doing that honesty look, because realistically, there are people out there that, one, don't want to do the honesty look, and two, once you understand yourself, if you hold others to the same standards, you'll start seeing the flaws in their character. And some people are truly never prepared to have their flaws just pointed out to them by someone outside of their circle. Hell, this is even something of I wouldn't say necessarily an issue per se, but something that happens even amongst friends, where at a certain point friends will let go of certain aspects of the friendship just to allow the friendship to stay as a whole, and thus making it so the honesty levels aren't there all the way there. It doesn't necessarily even matter if it's friendships. It could be relationships. It could be also as well work relationships, business relationships. All of those things are all encompassing with this lens that you see the world in. But if you are too bright when it comes to it, people don't like the reflection that you put upon them. So thus you have to have some restraint when looking outside. Of course, you want to try to be as honest as you can be, but you have to balance it out with some social structure and make sure that you follow some social cues, or else you're going to be labeled as a pariah or some type of just asshole out there in the world. Now, of course, there are people who are generally like this, then that makes sense, but you don't want to be known as the asshole. Obviously, it will probably make your life way more difficult than it needs to be. I think a lot of people end up taking this role, not realizing that you could just mute yourself for a little bit and understand the masks and or facades that people like to put on in such scenarios, so then that way they can actually participate in the dance that is society in the greater scale of things. So that's why, as much as you would like to be honest with the coworker that is stinks a little too much, as much as you want to be honest with your girlfriend that does something that actually annoys you, that isn't something that you necessarily have to do. Of course, you can try to point a general direction as to why they do it, or just a general sense of what is going on here, but you have to understand that that is probably going to be a sore spot, because they might not even know that this thing exists in their own head. It's like giving the sun to somebody that hasn't seen the sun in 40 years. It's going to be harsh for the first while, of course, but I think that you can be an arbiter of somebody that could be good in their life, of course, but you have to show some type of restraint, or else you risk fucking up the social dynamics that you have with these people and the rapport that you may or may not have. That's why having a good friend has a good balance of doing this, but also as well being able to, keeping it real, but also knowing that there are limits to keeping it real. There are certain moments where you say, okay, brother, like, I'm here for you, just let me know, but I'm gonna tell you how it is. And that's what makes that separates what a bad friend is from a good friend, because a good friend will let you know, hey, this isn't good, this isn't right, or whatever. They will actually tell you what you should hear rather than what you want to hear, and that really separates those. And that's how you know you have at least a good person around you. And this also is a representation of a good relationship partner, at least, where you can grow together in theory and have the lens lenses look at each other, through the clarity through each other. That's the entire point. But be aware that there are some people who will never want to do this, who will never want to be honest with themselves or with the outside world, because they'd rather live in a world where they can't see anything. So then those things cannot truly hurt them. And if they can't truly hurt them, then they could ignore them forever. And unfortunately, those are the types of people you have to worry about and make sure that either help them out or get them out of your life, because they're going to make your life worse as well. There are those out there who actually do not know how to be honest with themselves, and thus they will forever be in some sort of tainted window view of the world and will never really be able to go up about honesty to the point where they can actually put it out to not only themselves but to the outside world, as well as those who end up being either too honest with themselves, where they cloud everything about themselves or the outside world, and thus they are watching and waiting, or in some sort of weird sense making it so that the world is in a broken view. And that is also not good, because then you're just getting too honest, and these are not necessarily people you want to be around as well. They become what is essentially nihilistic.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Honesty is for the self, not for the world. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because this was something that was on the brain for a moment there, and is something that I feel like is a very truthful thing. We as people, as much as we would like to be honest with each other, whether it be all levels of relationships, doesn't matter where, 100% honesty, like true honesty, is impossible to reach. And I know that is something that we shouldn't be aiming for, but it's true. The thing is, it's because of the dynamics between not only people, but between even the genders and everything else, every other relationship, siblings, parents, all of that type of stuff. All of those relationships are predispositioned with certain certain rule sets almost, or certain placations that both sides have that are completely different, that make it so that the 100% honest viewpoint of that is almost impossible. It's very rare to find somebody to be 100% honest with another person, because there is sociable levels to certain things. Like, you're not going to try to tell somebody that you just first met that they stink immediately, right? Or the other way around, where you've been dating for such a long time, you're not going to be like, I've grown tired of you, Like, yes, maybe, but still, it's a very, like, even if you were feeling like that, it's just a feeling. It's not necessarily too true. What is it? It's not it's an over honesty to the point where you are not thinking of the other person. And I think that that's the main issue as to why honesty doesn't work on the outside. But when you flip it on the inside, I think that honesty is probably something that people should be more aware of and do it to themselves more often than not, especially because if you're honest with yourself, you're more likely to be able to assess certain things and also be truthful to yourself, and make sure that you aren't deluding yourself into believing certain things or making false claims that aren't even real. That's why no matter how hard I would like to try on this channel, I don't think I'm the genius or a cream of the crop or whatever. I'm just doing what I do, but this is an honest reflection of what I am like, really. It's just more of an introspection taken a little outward. But even then, I can't be 100% honest on here. Even if I was to be 100% honest on here, it would be something along the lines of like, I wouldn't be able to make it, because then these things would either become too long, convoluted, or just boring, or whatever, because it would be not only like an open book, but an open book that's going out too many details that nobody cares about except for me. But that's the entire point, right? That's why honesty works when you're doing it to yourself. That's why I always recommend people write their life down somewhere, because sometimes you can find out a lot about yourself just by writing down everything that's happened to your life and being honest about how things went in your life, how you perceived them, how you feel about them now, how you felt about them then, and all that other stuff. And having a truthful, honest play-by-play of your entire life can really put things in perspective as to what you want to do with it for the rest of it, because it's going to be if you don't do that, it's going to be a slog nonetheless. But I think that honesty is one of the best things that we can do as much as we can, but there are levels to it, and it's an unfortunate levels to it, because if you don't play the game, especially when it comes to the outside world, you are going to be shunned and no one's going to like you, because in essence, in a weird roundabout way, being honest is also in a weird way being selfish, because at the same time, as much as you are reflecting in, you are gazing upon the other person and looking deeper into them than they want you to, and thus you are becoming the center of their attention, and then thus you are kind of taking them over. And that's why like honesty like that doesn't work really as much as we would like it to. Now, of course, that doesn't mean just start lying to people, but also just there's a definite balancing act that has to happen when it's on the outside. Of course, when it's on the inside as well, but at least you can be harsher with yourself, because it's yourself, really. You should be stronger than you are, and you should be testing everything about yourself to make sure that the honesty can hold up in your personal life, in your personal self. But on the outside, if you do something like that, you could be destroying relationships immediately, because obviously, just because I know I'm an asshole doesn't mean you have to tell me I'm an asshole. It's not necessarily just as simple as that, because sometimes it is as simple as that, but there are more layers to it, obviously, especially if you're looking at somebody else. So this is just one of those interesting ones that I think about sometimes. So with that being said, though, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This was a random one, but in the vein of the channel nonetheless. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. If you have any stories about being too honest with somebody on the outside, or not being honest enough inwardly, please let me know in the comment section down below. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy, stay safe out there, and stay warm, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!